All right, in this video, we are going to talk about how to start using Eclipse. And so, when you start up Eclipse, the first thing it's going to ask you is to select a directory as a workspace. And if you're new to Eclipse, I would just kind of leave this as the default setting, whatever it is. And you can click that if you like, use this as the default setting and do not ask again. If you like, I usually don't do that, but I wouldn't change this too much. So what's going to happen is that um, all of your work that you do is going to be stored in this workspace directory. So let's see if we can take a look at that. So let me pull that up for a second. Let me see if I can get this situated. Okay, so if you look in your in this directory where this is located, you're going to see two directories, Eclipse and Eclipse Workspace. So this directory, Eclipse, if you look in there, it's just going to have all of the code and stuff for the Eclipse IDE itself. And in fact, if you want to uninstall Eclipse, you can just delete that directory right here. And then Eclipse Workspace, that's where all of your work's going to be stored. If we look at it now, it's just going to essentially be blank other than this metadata directory, which you might not even see on your system depending on what kind of system you're on. But anyway, you'll see that your work is going to be saved in this directory here. All right, so I would just go with that default for the beginning. All right, and then click Launch. And one of the issues with Eclipse is it does take a little while to start up. It does have a lot of features, so it's not as responsive at the beginning of as some other IDEs, but you're going to see it has a lot of really, really nice features in there as well. Okay. So when it pops up, you'll see this welcome message. Okay, and there's some tutorials in there that you can work through as well that are pretty good. I'm just going to close that out, and then when you close that out, you'll come to this main window right here. Over here is the Package Explorer. All right, and so in our previous class, we were used to using JGrasp to do that, and so one of the fundamental differences between the way we were doing things last semester with JGrasp and the way that we will do things with Eclipse is that Eclipse is project based. Project based. All right, you can create projects in JGrasp. We just didn't do that. So the first thing you're going to do when you start a new assignment or anything like that is to create a project for it. All right, so how you would do that is over here on this Package Explorer window, it says create a Java project, so click on that. All right, you're going to give the project a name, and so I'm just going to call this one first example project. Okay. And I would not put spaces in here. I think it's probably, especially if you're on a Mac, I wouldn't put spaces in here. And I would just kind of name these similar to how you name classes and variables in Java with no spaces in there. All right, most of this stuff you can just kind of leave alone and click Next. All right, for a basic project, the only thing you really want to do on here is I usually unclick create module-info.java file. You don't really need it for a simple file or project that you're going to work on, so I unclick that. If you forget to unclick that, then it will pop up a dialog box asking you whether or not you want to create a module dash info dot Java file, and I just click no. Okay. All right, and from there you can just click finish. All right, so it sets up kind of a blank project. You can see over here in the Package Explorer you have this blank project. You have the JRE system library. If you uncheck that, then you're going to look, these are all of the base classes that you have access to. So you'll see lots of things in here. And it's, if you want to look around in there, that's cool, but you can learn a lot of stuff, but it's not necessary. All right, and then here in source, there's really nothing, okay? So the SRC folder, that is kind of going to be where you set up your stuff, okay? And then just kind of looking back, if remember we looked at the Eclipse Workspace directory, we can see now if we go back and look on File Explorer or Finder, on whichever system you use, you can see now in the Eclipse Workspace directory, we have a new folder, first example project, right? And then you can see there's some files in there. And so when we put our source code in there, it will be in this directory right here, SRC. And you can see there's some other files in there that we won't get into, all right? Okay, so now we are ready to add a new class. All right, and so how we would do that is go to source right here, and then right click, and this menu is going to pop up, and we're going to go to new. All right, and there's lots of things that we could choose, right? But what we want is a class. Okay, so we want to create a new Java class. All right, and so it tells you the source folder. Notice I right clicked on SRC, so SRC is for source. That's where your source code should go. All right, so make sure that that is where you're adding classes, okay? Now, when we were using JGrasp, we just used the default package. We didn't specify a package for this class to go into, but leaving it as the default class or the default package in Eclipse will cause quite a few problems. So what you want to do is just come up with a name for a class. It should be lowercase, and again, no spaces in the class name. So I just use application as a generic package name. All right, and then you want to put the name of the class here. So I'm going to call this first example. All right, and here you can set your modifiers for the class. Do you want a public, package, private, protected, right? We've just been using public, okay? And so most of this stuff you'll just leave kind of the same for the time being on these first few examples in the first assignment. All right, and then down here in this part it asks, hey, which method stubs would you like to create? So this, if you check these things, it will create these methods automatically for you. And so in this first example, let's just do something where we ask the user for their name and we say hello and then their name. Okay. So it's going to have a main method. So I'm going to click this, and by clicking that box, it will automatically generate the main method for me. You can see there are some. You can make constructors as well. We haven't talked about inheritance and polymorphism. That's one of the first things that we'll have to talk about before we start with the graphical user interfaces. All right, and so just you can pretty much leave this checked for the time being as well. All right, and then just click finish. All right, and then you're going to see it has a class here. All right, and that is really, really small. So let me see if I can enlarge that a little bit. Let's see, it's editor here. And fonts. All right, so that's a little bit better. Okay, and so you can see what it generated for us, right? We have the package statement up here, application. That means this file needs to be in the application directory underneath the SRC folder. If now I go back and look on the file system, right, I can see under source, I now have another directory called application, and then there is my .java class, okay? All right, and you can see, so it generated the class for us called first example, and it also generated this main method as well. All right, and so now what we will do is start typing our code out. And so we can type it here. I'm first going to create a scanner object. So scanner in equals new system dot scanner. Sorry. Okay, and you can see as I'm typing, I'm getting some things that pop up. And those things that pop up will have little suggestions about what you might want to do or what you might want to type in. So there's some autocomplete features there, which is pretty nice because, you know, if you forget exactly how the import is supposed to be typed in, you can kind of look it up on those menus that pop up. And so that's really nice. You can see as I am typing things in, you can see some squiggly red lines underlining some things. And so what those will do, what those indicate are mistakes, right, that you've made typing these things in. All right, and you can see there's some red X's here as well. All right, so if you hover over the red X, you'll see the issue, and you can see it says multiple markers at this line. Scanner cannot be resolved to a type, right, and there's also some other errors in there. So what you can do is, if you hover over this thing, if you hover over it, you'll see over where the red squiggly lines are, you can see some suggestions for what you might need to do to fix the error. And now you got to be careful, right, because don't just blindly click on the first one, right, because here the correct one would be the third one down. The correct import, we're missing the import. I didn't type it in on purpose, right? So I could show you how this error handling will go. And we forgot to import java.util.scanner. So you can see there's multiple scanner classes, right, in different packages. Com, Sun, Java Cup, internal runtime, Com, Sun, tools, Java parser, right? But the one that we want is this java.util.scanner. That's the one that's causing the error here. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see that added this import up here automatically for me. And now you can see there's no red squiggly lines underneath scanner. All right, I still have some issues, right? And that issue, again, is I have a syntax error. I forgot to end this line with a semicolon, okay? And so over here, if I hover over this, right, it'll tell me, hey, you forgot a semicolon, all right? And so now we have the that line fixed. And you can see now I no longer have any of the red squiggly lines. And sometimes you'll see problems down here listed, okay? So sometimes they'll pop up there. I don't know if it's because I haven't saved or, yes. So if I pull this back, when I save, you'll see you have errors down there, okay? And so you can see the errors here, but you have to save to sort of refresh those things. All right, after I add the semicolon back in there, then you'll notice I have some yellow squiggly lines that are really faint. If I click save, it will show me that those are warnings, right, under there. All right, and so it's going to give me some things here. So warnings means your program will run, but there's some things that you probably need to do to fix, or what you've done is probably not the best way to do things. One says resource leak in is never closed. Okay. But the other one says the value of the local variable in is not used. So it's just kind of saying, hey, you have this variable in here that you haven't used yet. And the resource leak is about the fact that I never close the scanner object, which I just never do that, which I probably should. Okay. So you can see if I hover over this, I'll get some quick fixes in there. It says remove in and all assignments. I don't want to do that. I just haven't. I need to just continue typing here. So you don't have to go back and fix every warning that you see pop up like that. All right, so let's see. I want to say system.out.println. What is your name? And I want to get their name. Okay, you can see when I start typing the dot, as soon as I start typing the dot here in dot, you can see this is showing me all of the methods that I could use in this in object, methods and fields as well. Okay, and so as you're typing, you'll see in that context menu, you'll see the hints and methods and things that you can use in there. All right. All right. So now if I save, you can see that that warning about that the variable in is never used is it's gone away. But now it's saying, hey, you haven't used the variable name yet either. Okay. All right, and so the person enters their name, and then we tell them system.out.println hello, and then whatever their name is, and a question mark. Okay. All right, and so now you're ready to run this. Click this run button, okay? All right, and so the first time you run it, this dialog box is going to pop up, right? And it's going to say select sources to save. So that means every time when you punch this play button, it will automatically save. Now, there might be some files where you don't want to do that, and if so, you would uncheck it, but I usually just leave all of these checked, so it saves all of the files, right? And you can click always save resources before launching, so this doesn't pop up every time if you want to. Okay. So it starts running. It pops up in this console, right? It says what is your name, right? And the program runs over here. Okay. All right, so that's how you would do a basic assignment, similar to what we were doing last semester. So now, one of the things about Eclipse, right? A lot of times you'll have a lot of projects in here, okay? And sometimes, if you have multiple projects open, then you'll think that you're running a project, right? But you're in actuality you're running another a class from a different project. Okay, so a lot of times if you have multiple projects in here, what I'll do is close all of the ones except for the one that I'm working on. All right, so you can just go to close project, and you can see, right, that the file or the icon looks a little bit different here in the package explorer. You can see it will close all those files out. So again, that's confusing at first, is that sometimes you'll end up think you're in one project, and then you'll be working on another project accidentally, and so it helps to close the ones that you are not working on. All right, I'm going to open this back up and show you some other things about this. So now what I'm going to do is create, let's go ahead and open that file back up, first example. So I am going to go ahead and create another class in here. So I'm going to right click again on the source folder. I'm going to go new. All right. And then Java, or just class. And I'm going to call this one second example. And I want to give it a main method. All right, so now I have a second example. All right, this second example is in the same project, same package as first example. So you have two files with the main method there. So I'm going to go ahead and type just something in here. All right, so I added this statement that will just print out this message. And then I am going to press the green button again, okay? And it prints it out, all right? So now let's say I go back here, press this again. All right, and it's running it. So you can have multiple classes with main methods, right, in here, and run them with the play button. So on a lot of the code that I give you for examples, I'll probably just have them all in one project, for like each lecture or lesson that we go over. Okay. One other thing about when you run these, right? You can also, if you click on this little tiny down arrow that's next to the green play button, you can choose which one that you want to run. Okay, so I want to run the one some message, or I want to run the one first example. So you do have to be a little bit careful. Sometimes you can be running a class and think it's one class when in actuality it's another one. Okay, so again, just be a little bit careful about that. All right, so let's close this project out. All right, and now I'm going to create a new Java project. So let's say I want to work on some other different assignment. So you would choose a second, or just choose another name. I'm going to call this one second project. And again, use the default location. All this stuff you can leave the same. You can click finish right here. I usually like to go here and uncheck this, but I'm going to purposely forget to uncheck it again. And I'm going to click finish. And you'll see it'll ask me, hey, do you want to create a module info.java? I just click don't create. There's no need to do that right now. So that will create a second project, and then you can start working on your second project by just creating a new class, giving it a package name. Again, I just use application. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to add the main method into this class. And I'm just going to add a line in here so we can see. And then I'm going to run it. All right, and let's just, if I open up this first application or first example.java, then click back here. If I run it, you can see that I get another print statement. Okay, so that's what I was saying. If you have multiple projects open, sometimes it's easy to forget, like, which you don't notice, hey, I accidentally, this first example is up here in the first example project, and I accidentally clicked down here to second project, and when I clicked run, it ran this another class.java, even though it was first example.java code that was showing in a totally different project, right? So that's kind of that can't really happen in JGrasp, which is what you're used to using. So sometimes people get confused by that. Okay, so I think that is it for the very basic operation of Eclipse and how to get started on some of these things. Again, I would suggest closing those projects that you're not working on. Just right-clicking them and going to close project, or control-click on a Mac. Okay. All right, so that is it on this one.